Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? Welcome to Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. I feel like I always talk over Rick because the Zoom is late.
Yeah, I know. It always happens.
And then in my headset, on the podcast, you guys can hear him loud and clear, but on my headset, I can like kind of hear him. And so it difficult to hear if I'm talking. So when he says something, it's just right over my head. Either that or it's my ADHD. Right.
No, I think it's probably, you can blame it on technology.
Okay. Well, we'll blame it on technology. So yeah, welcome to Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Today we have trade targets for week 6. So we'll hop into those, give you 5 guys that you should buy right now in your fantasy leagues heading into week 6 and beyond. We are recording this on Friday, so we did happen to watch Thursday Night Football.
Right.
What do you think of the Thursday Night Football game?
Kind of boring a little bit, but good. It was a good game, I guess.
Yeah.
No,
kind of close at the end.
Yeah, this is one of those games where the people that bet like the under and didn't watch the game were like, "I knew the Eagles were good." Yeah. Not the under. They were
losing 28-7 at the half.
Yeah, the Buccaneers just let them come back in that game, and then they could have scored at the end, and they took a knee at like the 8-yard line. So everyone who took the Bucks +7 was just in tears.
Oof. Yeah,
I'm glad I didn't bet on that game.
Yeah. It was close at the end because the Bucks had. I think the Eagles had them stopped 3 times on 3rd down, and then they just let.
They did, but anytime the Bucks were like, okay, it's time to do something, they did something.
Isn't that Brady? 3rd downs.
Yeah,
it's TB12. That's what Brady does. 3rd downs are his fantasy. It's not his wife. It's the 3rd down conversions.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, it was a good game. I got Jalen Hurts 27 fantasy points once again.
Oh my gosh, that was the worst 27
in the first 3 quarters. And then 19 in the 4th. So
he went 12. He had 12 completions. He went 12 of 26, a touchdown and an interception. He had 2 fourth quarter rushing touchdowns.
Yep, that's what Trey does. I mean, not Trey. I'm thinking about Trey Lance in my brain. That's what Hurts does.
Dude, that is so
hurts me in 3 quarters and makes me love him in the 4th.
He hurts you.
So I'm not even a dad, and I'm making dad jokes up in here. Yeah, you said 31, 21, 24, 30, 23, and 27.
That isn't our 6-point touchdown one, but yeah.
I'm not in that league. That's in the regular league. That's a 5-point touchdown league.
Hold on.
Either way, he's been really good. He's a QB2 right now because, no one else has played. But anyway, before we jump into trade targets, though, check our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Just type our name in and you'll find us. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platform, share this podcast with your friends. Leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. And then like and comment down below who, or you know what, we'll grade some trades.
Grade some trades.
Leave a comment down below and we'll grade some trades you've done. Sound good?
I'm down.
What were you going to say? I feel like I cut you off to do the intro, but I figured we'd get that out of the way while I was talking.
Oh, I think I was just going to say, you know who the QB1 is, though?
Who?
Tom Brady.
Oh, my God.
That's not going to stay. He didn't have a great...
Bro, what do you think?
Again, you're right. Buccaneers, they're at the 1-yard line, and they decided to run it 3 times in a row, and Fournette scored instead of throwing it. Brady easily could have 4 touchdowns in this game, but yeah.
I just typed Buccaneers and I was looking for Tom Brady. My goodness. Yeah, no, I was offhand watching it last night. It was like on the side, and so I would look over every time Jalen Hurts was on the field, and I feel like I've watched Brady for 23 years, so I should just stop at this point.
Yeah, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah. 33, 34, 29, 11, 20, No, 42 and then 20 again. So mediocre game.
Yeah, but he could have easily had 4 touchdowns, but they just decided to run it against the Eagles.
So did Rojo score or did Fournette?
No, Ronald Jones continues to get like a 15% snap percentage.
2 rushing touchdowns for Leonard Fournette. What did I tell you, boss? 27 fantasy points.
Yeah.
We should have made Leonard Fournette a start of the week.
He
Not that we freaking said that on our last show.
Fournette wasn't even that great. They just gave him the ball 22 times because they were playing the Eagles, which you called. But
mediocre.
Hey, but what about Antonio Brown?
Bro, the guy he's all right though. He got hurt midway through the game. Did he come back?
Yeah, he came back.
He's
the wide receiver 1 on that team. This past week, Mike Evans had 4 targets. Chris Godwin had 5. Antonio Brown had 13.
So I don't remember what happened in week 2 and 3 because,
week 3 he didn't play. Week 2, I think he got hurt in that game, but I could be wrong. He might have just not showed
21 in games that he's played in full. He had 21 fantasy points in week 1, 9 against New England, 27 against Miami, and 19 against Philadelphia.
That's wide receiver 1 numbers.
Yeah, that's absurd. But anyway, this is not a Thursday night recap show. This is a trade target show, so we should jump into trade targets. I do love AB, though. Love myself a good old spoonful of Antonio Brown. Do you think I can deal him in a Dynasty League?
I have him in a Dynasty League, and I'm kind of trying, but nobody really wants him. I think it's just because he's old.
I'll take a pick.
Hey, is it the league that we're in?
Yeah, dude.
We'll see. I mean, he is old.
Should I? I mean, I'm going to keep riding it out until things go south.
That's fair.
Because, I'm 4-1 and I really shouldn't be. My team's really not that good. But I'm going to keep riding it out. We'll see what happens.
Is he in your starting lineup every week?
Every single week.
Okay, then yeah, I would ride it up then.
Because he's, he scores a lot of fantasy. I didn't expect him to be. Him and Mike Williams. And then I traded Mike Williams for Keenan Allen. I don't know if that was a good idea.
Yeah, that was. He had 1 point in week 4, but then he came back for 33 the next week and 16 targets.
Yikes! But anyway,
so
let's jump into trade targets for week 6. Number 1 on the list, Rick. You ready to go?
Yeah,
it's Javonte Williams. Okay, so I feel like he was on the show last week. He definitely was on the show last week.
He's probably gonna be on the show every week.
He's probably gonna be until the inevitable happens.
Who was it Chris Herndon always on the tight end list, but we never put him on.
Oh yeah,
for like 8 straight weeks for the waiver wire show.
Back equivalent.
This is yeah. Except he's actually good.
So Javonte has literally, and I wish they would just give him the full workload because his schedule is just ridiculous. He's already had an easy schedule to start the season, and then he has an easy schedule to end the season. Arguably, the stretch of the next 4 games is probably the toughest he's going to have.
Yeah.
So, the big thing about Javonte is that he's kind of in a weird predicament where he's getting around 40 to 50% of the work, or the snap percentage, I should say, not the work, and he has been efficient with that opportunity. So far this year, he's averaging about 4.5 yards per carry, and he's been more efficient on a per game basis and through the air and on the ground every single week, consistently getting like 3 targets a game, which is good for his upside. And he's getting around, I want to say 15 touches, or no, let's say 14 to 15 touches. His big problem, there is 0 goal line opportunities for him because of Melvin Gordon. So the anticipation is that he ends up like JT last year and starts the season as the second running back on the team and ends the season as the first running back on the team. Whatever way that means. Either
or even J.K. Dobbins.
Him and J.K. Dobbins. And I think he's talented enough and good enough to do that. Like if you give him a full like gamut of work and the goal line carries, I think he could be like a top 15, top 12 running back in the NFL. But I don't know when that's going to happen. The big thing is neither does the person who owns Javonte Williams. he's a cheap buy, at least for the time being, because the person that got him is probably not impressed with this 4-7, 11-10, or 4-7, 11, 7, and 10 on the season. And they're probably willing to deal him. So he's a guy that's not going to come at a extremely high cost, and he's a guy that I would purchase right now in fantasy football. Just run out, buy him, try to get him on your team, because if he takes over the next 4 weeks, I'm really don't envy the person who has to play Javonte Williams and down the stretch in those final 6 weeks.
Yeah, pretty good matchups. I hope he starts, man. I want to see it. You know my feelings on Javonte.
You got a chubby for Javonte.
I'm a fan. I do. He kind of a lot of people compared him to Nick Chubb, who I also loved.
Yeah.
Coming into the draft, so I don't know if he's quite there, but he's that type of player, I think. And given the opportunity, he can be a high-end RB2 and maybe even a low RB1. I think next year in drafts, he's probably going to be like a second or third round pick. But yeah, hopefully it's only a matter of time. J.K. Dobbins was a good example of this last year where I think it took him like 10 weeks though, 10 or 11 weeks, where he was the backup running. I think actually it was week 12.
To Mark Ingram.
Yeah, I can look it up. But it took him like most of the season before he kind of became the starter. But he did eventually. It was week 11. They announced like, okay, we're going to give him more work. And the last few weeks of the season, he got that work and he was getting like 17, 13, 13, 14, 13, 28 fantasy points. And he was very, very solid at the end of the year. And I hope that's the case with Javonte. I think it will be the case. He's too talented a back for them not to give him opportunity.
I agree.
My guess would be after the week 11, if everyone stays healthy, would be after the week 11 bye and that stretch of good matchups like the week 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, where Javonte just lights it up and becomes the starter.
And I think, too, the other problem is that Melvin Gordon, he's had some bad games this year. And you said before the podcast that he had like 170-yard run that got him most of his fantasy points.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Or not most of his fantasy points, most of his yards per carry totals like skyrocketed because of that. But anyway, I think for Javonte, as soon as he takes over as a starter, he's going to be like legit, especially with the schedule down the stretch. Just the question is if it happens. And I guess when it happens, but you've been more scared recently about it not happening. But that might just because you're in the mid-season and you're waiting patiently.
It's just because it's like I'm just waiting every week and it's not happening, so it's kind of like.
But honestly, here's what I think is gonna happen. This is my prediction. This is my bold take, and we don't have a lot of time left to talk about more players because why not? But. I guess my bold prediction, or not really that bold because Melvin Gordon gets hurt a lot, is that Melvin's going to miss a game. There's going to come a point where he gets hurt and he misses a game because he's literally missed a game every season except for last year. And I feel like he'll miss like some time and Javonte will come in and that'll be it.
Right.
And I think that's going to essentially when Melvin Gordon doesn't play in a game and they give you the full opportunity to Javonte Williams, it's going to honestly be the week where it just shifts in the backfield. Even if Melvin comes back, he's going to end up being the Javonte in the offense. And Javonte Williams is going to end up being a guy who gets a majority of the work and a guy who gets all the red zone opportunities. Because I don't care if he's getting 15 touches a game. Like if that's where he's at, then that's where he's at. That's good. But it's if he gets that touchdown opportunity. Because right now, without the red zone opportunities, he's literally getting like an average of like 7 fantasy points a game on a 40% snap percentage with no red zone opportunity. So the kid starts scoring touchdowns. He adds, 60% work to his game. He's going to end up being a really, really good running back. And I'm not rooting for anybody to get injured, but I think that's what it's going to take for Javonte.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I don't want to root for injuries either. And the thing is, Melvin Gordon, he hasn't been as good as Javonte or really that great. But for a 28-year-old running back, he's really not bad. Like, he's decent.
And Javonte's honestly been the saving grace of his career because he could split snaps with somebody.
Yeah, exactly. So it would have to take something like that, I think, for Javonte to really overtake him. But it is Melvin Gordon. He has missed a game like every year of his career. Even last year, he did miss one game against the Patriots, I guess. Yeah.
I'm not good.
But he was mostly healthy, though, the whole season. But yeah, historically speaking, Melvin Gordon usually does get hurt and will miss like 2 or 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I really hope so that Javonte takes over because he's going to be a beast when he does. I would trade for him, though, which is pretty much the point we were trying to make. But yeah, I would trade for him right now. Before that happens.
Okay. Number 2 guy is A.J. Brown. Can you tell me the feeling that it has been A.J. Brown owner this season, and then explain to us why you should buy him?
The only reason I really haven't traded him yet is because, like, I know I'm not going to get the value equivalent for him that I should, because last season he kind of was injured. So it wasn't his fault. But the one game that he played where he was fully healthy, he didn't really do anything. And then by the time week 5 came around, everybody was trading him and everything. And then, boom, he would just get he got 3 straight 20-point weeks and kind of took off. I have a feeling it's going to happen eventually. Like, A.J. Brown is going to play like A.J. Brown. Mm-hmm. He's not this bad. The only thing that is the only reason he's been playing like this is because the offense has been that bad. Yeah. But even when the offense plays well, he hasn't really done anything crazy. Mm-hmm. But he's also been battling an injury. He's been battling a hamstring injury, so he hasn't been 100%. And one of these weeks, either this week against Buffalo or next, I'm going to guess it's this week against Buffalo. He's just going to go out and get 25 fantasy points, and everybody's going to be like, oh.
We better hope.
There he is. Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't own him in 2 weeks, I think, so I do better hope.
Yeah.
But,
I think when you look at the stretch at the beginning of the season where, he played 80+% of the snaps in the first 2 games and he had 89 targets, now he didn't have good games in that. And I think honestly, I've talked about Tennessee's offense a little bit. I don't know if it's on the pod, but if it hasn't been on the pod, I talked to Rick about it. And their offense, I think, is something that I think a lot of the elements of it are things that players are learning. It's a different offense than completely different offense, but a different offensive coordinator and a different plan than what they're usually used to with Arthur Smith. So I feel like Tennessee's trying to figure some things out offensively with their new offensive coordinator, and that at some point talent is going to overcome that. I mean, they have Julio Jones when he's playing, A.J. Brown when he's on the field. They have Derrick Henry, maybe one of, if not the best running back in the NFL right now. And they have an extremely good offensive line and a quarterback who's probably top 12 at least.
Right.
So I'm like, when you look at all the elements of that, this offense will figure it out. It's just when that happens. And when it does happen, you're going to see A.J. Brown explode. After those first 2 weeks, though, he had 8 and 9 targets. After those first 2 weeks, he got hurt. And he only had 12% snap percentage because he got hurt against Indianapolis, missed a game against the Jets, came back in a limited way against Jacksonville last week and had 6 targets. So I feel like this week he'll get back to full capacity. He'll get his 8, 9, 10 targets. And the big thing about A.J. Brown is that he's a type of player, and you watched him last year, that these 12-point games came along every once in a while. But if he got a slant pattern and he caught it and it went 60 yards for a touchdown, you're all of a sudden looking at a week where he scores 25 fantasy points and you're like, that's A.J. Brown. And so I think you're going to see him improve and you're going to get better, but this is the cheapest you're going to get him. Like, people are done with A.J. Brown, and this is the lowest value that he's going to provide. Even if he comes back and gets 12 fantasy points a game, A.J. Brown is going to be more valuable at that point. So,
right. Well, that's what I mean. Right now is his absolute lowest value.
Yeah.
So,
all right,
go buy him.
Let's move on to the next guy, Terry McLaurin. Okay, so McLaurin has had 3 bust games and 2 very, very good games on the season. And this by no means is a buy low because you're getting enough production. You have Terry McLaurin in 3 leagues. So as a Terry McLaurin owner, how do you look at him on the season with the 3 bust games and the 2
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was fine with the 8. If he gets 822, 827, like I don't. 8 points to me isn't like a complete bust. Like it's a down week. The 6 point week was bad, but he still had 11 targets in the game, so I'm not too worried about it. And this week against Kansas City, I would expect it. Like I'm playing him in DFS leagues against Kansas City. It's a wonderful matchup if he plays, which right now he's questionable. But yeah, it's a good time to trade for him because
there is a report, by the way, 32 minutes ago from James Palmer of NFL Network. He said should play despite late injury. So he's going to play this week.
Okay, that's good. Good to hear. Yeah, I think he's going to go off against the Chiefs. It's a good matchup. But that's kind of the player McLaurin feels like he's going to be on Washington with Taylor Heineke. He's getting a crap ton of targets ever since Heineke's taken over, because week 1 it was Fitzpatrick and then Heineke took over. I don't really count that one. That was a weird game. They didn't throw the ball a lot. Since Tyler Heineke's been the starter, 14 targets, 7, 13 targets, 11. Like he's getting a lot of targets. I think against Kansas City that doesn't change, and he gets a pretty big game, and your window to buy him goes away just like that again. But this is kind of what McLaurin is to me. Like he's going to get 20 plus point weeks. Like he's the wide receiver, he's the top 5 fantasy receiver, and then he's going to get weeks where he gets 8 points.
I'm trying to find on Player Profiler his actual catch rate, his true catch rate, which is 85%. And his his target quality rating. Okay, so it combines catchable targets and average target depth, putting a premium on deep catchable targets and discounting shorter and uncatchable passes. Okay, does that make sense? This is from Player Profiler. It's at 4.96, which ranks 67th in the NFL.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so his average target quality is horrible. And that's because Taylor Heineke is the starting quarterback. And when you look, it reflects on the stat sheet, because you look at these games after week 2. 7 targets, 4 catches. 13 targets, 6 catches. That's under 50% catch percentage. 11 targets, 4 catches. Now, our good friend Ryan Fitzpatrick, is he out for a very long time?
I want to say he was out for 8 weeks, and that was week 1. So there's a chance he would come back in a couple weeks. Maybe back week 7.
I have a very strong feeling that if Heineke is a starter long term, the target quality rating is not going up, and that this is going to be a situation for Terry McLaurin where, like Rick said, this is going to be like a boom or bust situation. But if Ryan Fitzpatrick does come back and he's healthy and he's fine, I think his target quality is going to be a lot. I don't want to say a lot better, but better than what it would normally be. I keep watching Terry McLaurin. This is age 25 season, and we're just wasting this guy on this horrible football team. And he needs a quarterback, badly. Is his contract up soon? Because this would be the rookie contract. I would hope so, because I want him somewhere where he can actually catch a ball. Either way, the point of this discussion is, why is he a trade target? And it's simple. Terry McLaurin's ridiculously talented. And regardless of who's throwing him the football, even if it's inconsistent, the guy is literally wide receiver 14 on the season, and we had games, so I don't know if any of the wide receivers changed last week between A.J. Brown and others. So we'll see what happens after this week. But he's been very, very good. He's a low-end wide receiver 1 to me. And with a good quarterback, he's somewhere in the vicinity of wide receiver 7, 8. So I think he's worth a trade. And I don't know what it's going to cost to get him. Probably a running back. And if you have a depth at the running back position, then yeah, I would do a deal for Terry McLaurin. But otherwise,
let's say you have Josh Jacobs. Would you trade Jacobs for McLaurin? That might be a bad example because you have Jacobs.
It's a good example because I have him on one of my teams. So now I would have to think about it. Let me look real fast and see what we got here.
Because I'm just saying, those running backs that are low end RB2s, where if you're pretty good at the running back position.
Whoa. Diss on Josh Jacobs and call him a low end RB2, but that's probably what he is.
Yeah, I mean,
It depends. If you're desperate for a wide receiver and you have a plural, which is not a position that a lot of teams are in, then yes, that might be a deal that you can
see
pull.
If I can get a better example.
But I don't know who would be a better.
Or let's say this feels like an easy one, but like Chase Edmonds and another wide receiver from McLaurin.
Yeah,
yeah,
for him. Yeah, it's gonna take a mid to low end RB to I would think to get Terry McLaurin. Now people are gonna get on the YouTube comments and be like, "What the frick? Terry McLaurin's way more valuable than that."
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, come up with your own examples on your own time.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's I think Josh Jacobs is either even. Yeah. I'm trying not to look at it as a Jacobs owner, but it's either even or.
I think if you obviously if you're weak at running back, then I wouldn't
keep Josh Jacobs. But it's not worth it.
In your scenario, if you feel like you're good at running back and you need a receiver, I would do it.
Terry McLaurin.
But I'm also
for Travis Kelce, straight up.
Yeah. I don't know. No, I think
which side would you take in that?
Fantasy point total, is McLaurin even different from Kelce?
No. See, this is what I'm starting to realize on Kelce, because I was trying to negotiate with somebody who had Kelce on their team, and they were kind of like, and they were like, "Oh, it's going to take a lot to get Kelce." And I'm like, "Why would it? He only averages 12 points a game."
Yeah, so far this year, but I mean, last year he was
no, he was very good. But I'm like,
wide receiver 5.
So if he averages 12 points a game, why am I going to give you a player who averages 16 to 17 points a game? Doesn't make sense.
McLaurin has 2 less fantasy points so far this year than Travis Kelce. So,
yikes. Hey, if you don't like tight ends and you want a wide receiver, or say you have Waller and Kelce.
I mean, yeah.
I'd do that.
Well, yeah, of course.
Anyway, so let's move on to the next guy. Number 4, Devonta Smith. Honestly, I like Devonta Smith a lot. I think he's a really, really great player. He reminds me a little bit of actually Terry McLaurin his rookie season. Because you remember T-Mac, he was one of the biggest pickups, but he had that off and on. He was getting target share, but he had this off and on, really good week, really not so good week. And that's kind of what Devonta Smith is doing right now.
Yeah.
He's having these really, really good weeks. And I don't know what he did on Thursday Night Football. I have to look.
It wasn't good. He had 2 catches.
He had what?
Which is good for our argument. Yes. He had a bad week. He had 2 catches.
So yeah, I look at him as a player who's, he's not boomer bust. I don't think he's a boomer bust player that's going to hurt you on a week-to-week basis. I think it's going to take him to week 10 to actually start producing at a high level. Actually, his numbers kind of mirror a little bit Brandon Ayuk's last year.
They do, yeah.
And Ayuk down the stretch, especially when you're talking about down the stretch for Smith, was really good. The big thing is that he's going into this gauntlet of games. He just played Tampa, he had a bad game. He's going into this gauntlet of games against Las Vegas, Detroit, the Chargers. So it's going to be a little bit, I don't know about Detroit, but the Raiders and the Chargers are going to be a little bit tougher on the wide receiver position, and he might not have the best games. But after that point, he has Denver, New Orleans, the Giants, the Jets, Washington, the Giants, Washington, Dallas.
That week 12 to week 17 is just, my gosh.
It's bad.
Giants twice, Washington twice, and the Jets.
Yikes. Yeah, no, I hate to put 2 Eagles on this list, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
We have another one coming up. But anyway, yeah, no, it's a very, very good stretch of games for him, and I think that if he figures it out after this week 9-10 matchup, even if he figures it out after the week 14 bye, it's going to be 15, 16, 17 easy matchups all day.
Right.
And he's been getting those. He's been, I would say, not including this week against Tampa on Thursday night, but he was getting a good 8 to 9 targets a game on a week-to-week basis. So,
no, that's right. He's still, I think, the wide receiver 1 on the team. Although it's definitely not Jalen Reagor. Did you see any of the Reagor stuff from this past week?
No.
He had 2 drop passes.
Oh my!
And 0 catches. His only good plays of the game were when he drew pass interference penalties.
I feel like a lot of the wide receivers from last year's class were overdrafted.
Yeah.
Not the good ones.
Yeah.
Not Justin Jefferson. Not
CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb. I'm sorry.
I mean, Jerry Jeudy only played one
Jerry
game.
Jeudy either, but
good,
Rieger, bad draft.
Rieger was.
Ruggs,
I mean, there's always going to be. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
There's always going to be.
The question is, which ones are going to do that now? No one so far, because Chase and Smith.
Well, last year, yeah, I don't know. Might be the top 3. Might be fine, but I mean, we'll see. Yeah, Quinn Watkins, is that his name?
Yeah.
He actually led the team at targets this week as well. But him and Devonta Smith are like the 1-2, and I think Smith most weeks has been the one. He had 10 targets, 9 targets the last 2 weeks. Watkins had 7 and 3. So this week, Hurts didn't really throw the ball a lot. He only had like 25 pass attempts and only 12 completions. So yeah, when that's going to happen, Smith isn't going to have monster weeks. But I think I liked your comparison with Brandon Ayuk. He does kind of feel like that, where last year Ayuk had good games, bad games. He was really inconsistent the first like 8 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second half of the season, he was consistently getting like 15-point weeks every week rest of the season.
Yeah.
I hope that's what it is with Smith. I think he can do that. And it might take him a little longer because he doesn't have a bad schedule, but some like mediocre game, like what you were saying, the Raiders, the Chargers are not great. But then like the Giants, Jets, Washington, Giants, Washington again, like that stretch of games, like he could really have a league winning type end of season where he gets like 15 to 20 points a week. Totally. And he comes out of nowhere. And you can get him pretty cheap right now. So
I agree. It's not a bad, especially if you need a wide receiver. It's not a bad trade,
or even a solid flex.
I feel like we should do a show just on like tradable running backs.
I know,
because everyone's looking for those and not wide receivers. But anyway, let's move to the next guy. Miles Sanders is the final player, and this is not me and my love of Miles Sanders.
People are watching this like, of course they got Miles Sanders and he blows.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so we just talked about the Eagles down the season stretch, which for the most part, Giants, Jets, bye week, Washington, Giants, Washington, like that stretch of games is really, really easy for the running backs and for Miles Sanders more particularly. But you even look at the next couple weeks, the Raiders, Detroit, Chargers, all been giving up fantasy points to the running back position pretty handily. So that's really, really good as far as schedule is concerned for Miles Sanders. The big thing for me, and me and Rick were talking about it pre-podcast, is that he's getting essentially, I want to say, the same workload he got last year, between 14 to 16 touches a game. His snap percentages actually have increased from around 65% to like 75 to 80% in the last couple weeks. So that's also a good thing. And the other thing is, when you look at some of these games, like Atlanta was a game that the Eagles were able to do what they wanted to, right? San Francisco was a game, I can't remember what the score was in that game, to be honest with you, but he was able to get 15 touches. So the first 2 weeks are 14 touches that week. So the first 2 weeks he got 20 and 14 touches in respective games. After that, they had a horrible game against Dallas. I believe they were losing to KC. Did they end up winning that game?
The Chiefs, no.
Oh, okay, right. They got blown out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if they got blown out, but they lost.
But anyway, they lost, and they were playing from behind for a majority of the game, which basically took Miles Sanders out of the script. And then Carolina, they were losing for most of the game, took him out of the script, and then they ended up winning the game in the end, but it took them like a big comeback with a lot of throwing. And Tampa, they were behind 28-7 last night. So it's like all these games since like week 3, they've been playing from behind and haven't been able to use the running back. And I think in these upcoming games against the Raiders, against Detroit, not against the Chargers, but then against Denver, maybe New Orleans, Giants, Jets, Washington, like all of these teams they're going to play here down the stretch, they're games where they're probably either going to be in it or winning, which gives Miles Sanders opportunity. And this is maybe the cheapest running back that you can get at this point, because 6'7", 6'7" in terms of fantasy points, and I can't remember if this is a PPR or half PPR league, but is not good.
Right.
It's not good at all.
No, it's not.
But
yeah,
you can get him from cheap. So that's kind of where I'm like, at running backs right now, hard to get. This is a guy that people are not bought in on, and he's somebody that you can go out and you can buy very, very cheap and get on your team and at least expect, for me down the stretch, I think I'm going to expect like 11 to 12 points per game, and it gives you a good secondary flex option. So,
right. Well, that's the thing right now about the running back position is it's filled with
guys like this
right now. Yeah. Everybody needs a running back unless you traded for 2, you got lucky, you drafted 2 or 3 really good ones.
Yeah.
Like, mostly every team needs a running back right now, and they're looking for running backs. Mm-hmm. So they're expensive. Running backs right now are really, to be honest, too expensive than they should be. Like, you're trading a wide receiver that gets 15 points a game for a running back that gets 9, and you think you won because you need a running back. So that's how it's kind of going right now in the market. So this is a good buy because he's very cheap right now. I think the person who owns Miles Sanders is probably willing to give you him for not much, treating him like a flex option. And to be honest, at this point, a flex high-end a bench player.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying like you might have to sweeten the pot a little bit for that, but you can get him as a cheap RB2, which is a lot of things that people need right now. And with that schedule rest of the season, he's too talented of a player. Like this past week against the Buccaneers is a good example of this. They gave him 1 carry in the first half, which wasn't even unexpected. Right. I think both of us knew Miles Sanders was going to have a bad week this week because of that Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense. But the coach just completely was like, we're not even going to try to run the ball. We'll give him 1 carry, and as a team, we'll have 1 carry, like and that'll be it. Right. But then they started using him in the second half, and he was actually good. Like, he was getting like
6 yards,
an 8-yard run here. Yeah, he gets stuffed, but then the next run he gets 14 yards. Like, he was running the ball well. Once they play a game where he's right, but once they play a game where he's involved in the game plan, like a game like Detroit in week 8, and he gets like 20 carries and he gets 90, 100 yards and has some receiving work and actually gets a touchdown, which, by the way, he does not have a touchdown this year. That's not going to continue. Once he scores a touchdown as well, like, he's going to start putting up good weeks, and he's going to be a very cheap option that you got that ends up being a decent RB2.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I was just about to mention the touchdown thing. And like in fantasy football, a lot of times a touchdown changes a week, you know?
Yes.
And those 6 to 7 fantasy point games, had he scored 1 touchdown, it turns into a decent game. You get 12 fantasy points and everyone's like, oh, that's a good week. And that's something that has not happened yet. So the fact that he's putting up 6 to 7 points a game just on, rushing and receiving is not great. I'd like to see that at 10, but I think that's just opportunity. And it's clear to me that he is the best running back they have. Boston Scott blows. Kenneth Gainwell's still trying to figure things out. And it's just like it's one of those situations where it's like I think at some point they are going to get Miles Sanders heavily involved because A, he's their best player, and B, they're in a situation. I think no, that's not true. That's not right. The offense, the old. Do they still have Deuce Staley, or is he?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think he became the offensive coordinator in Detroit, but I don't know. Just don't quote me on that. But anyway, they have a new system there. So it's like, I think they've been figuring out kind of what they want to do offensively. And from the stuff that I've heard, the head coach and the offense coordinator have liked to use like workhorse running backs in the past, and they really have not. I mean, they've showed that they want to do that this year, but they haven't been able to because they've been playing from behind for the most part. And so they haven't been able to get Miles Sanders going on the ground. They clearly like Kenneth Gainwell a lot in the passing game. It doesn't limit Miles Sanders in the passing game at all, but the opportunities have not been there because they've been losing. So I think for Miles Sanders, it is a great buy. Like Rick said, it's a he's either a mid to low end RB2 right now, and everyone's out on him. And this is the time to swoop in and try to get him on the cheap, because teams that have him are like, oh my God, I drafted him as my second running back. He's not performing well. Like, what am I going to do? And you have to take advantage of that. So, And I like schedules down the stretch.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, me too.
But anyway, so there are your trade targets for week 6. It should be an interesting weekend. Got some good matchups of football. Hopefully you pull out a win this week for your fantasy team and for us to prove that you took your information from us and won a game. So that's good.
Yes.
But anyway, if you have any comments, leave them below. Thanks for listening, guys.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.